You said that when you got to Radcliffe, you felt free.
Oh, I did.
What did you feel free of? What were you free of?
The country club, the obligation to join the junior league, which I saw stretching out before me, uh, um, and mother would never have allowed certain things. She had her preferences for whom I would marry, I think. I loved my grandmother, her mother, above all, I think. And she was really a good woman, and she was a business grandmother because her father, her husband had died prematurely, and he was quite a somebody, I think. And so she was, I mean, he was well off, but anyway. So she came back to Cedar Rapids, I think, to occupy her sister's house because her sister got a divorce, and it was a beautiful home, and it even had, you know, built-in vacuum cleaners, and this was in the 20s. So I mean, it was kind of a nice house, and it was set in the middle of 1.5 acres and of land, and she sold off quietly and with very, you know, because it was the I think it was the Depression, so she sold off a lot of land and in front and back and so forth, but we still had a nice chunk. But she did have these enormous ledgers on her desk that were and she would have oats in the, you know, the back 40 and so forth, and she kept a strict track. She had panache. I mean, but she had a great sense of humor, and she would oh God, what was an example of one of her favorite things, I gather, was to shoot a watermelon seed down the table at somebody that she didn't like or thought he was, and she would zap him, and they would go. When I got to Radcliffe, it was like I was free and freed up to be myself, and I didn't know what to expect when I left. And I got on this train, and there was somebody from Chicago who got on the train, and then there was another person from North Dakota who was on the same train, and so we all, and this woman from she was named Fairbank, and it turns out we're related, but anyway, I didn't know that then. She would walk up and down the train saying, "Anybody here going to Radcliffe?" And I said, "Yes." And we became fast friends. I thought that was really neat because I was just off on this adventure. So that was really when I don't want to say when my life began, but I just jumped into all kinds of activities, musical, chamber music, choral work. It was just like a feast, and I had such a good time. I really did. I dated a lot, obviously, and and that was fun too. They always had these jolly ups, you know, which were for the freshmen, and they were evenings of God, how to explain it? Really, sort of introducing us to the boys, and and anyway, they were jolly. But and I used to get a lot of. I mean, face it, I wasn't bad looking, but I used to get a lot of follow-up calls from those and I was sort of sort of resented, I think, by the other girls in the dorm because I didn't do anything different. I just seemed to be, I don't know. Anyway, I joined the choir because it's such a good choir. And so that rehearsed several nights a week, and it was really, I didn't think a thing about it. I just joined it. And then I was in the little sort of, Tom's heard this, but I had Nadia Boulanger, who was famous for training directors, and she's the one who I mean, she was just wonderful. She was from Paris, and so she came over to conduct a choir. She just ran us ragged, and she was still playing at the piano. She was in her 70s or something, and she was She said, "Well, I suppose you need a little rest." And we just poleaxed. And I said, "Yeah, well, yeah." And so she continued at the piano, and she was giving a demonstration to somebody, and then she said, "Okay, are you rested now?" And then she went back to work, and it was, she was just amazing. And so she came around later, and we were marking the partitions of, so where A and B and C were, and so she could just say those words more easily. And then she appeared, and this was like 10 o'clock at night or something, and she said, "I have taken pity on you, little children, and I want to thank you." And she dropped off this box of bonbon or something, and it was just adorable. And then there was bridge, and so some of us played bridge until all hours, and it was really funny. And then we had to go and study an all night long study session. It was just amazing. I mean, and there were biddies in the kitchen and we'd have to help. We had to help serve the table, and and we took turns, and it was all regular. And God, it was fun. It was really. I always loved art, and that's all I wanted to do when I was growing up. I just loved it, and I painted all the time. But the thing about Radcliffe is that you can't, there was no studio program. So I just had to indulge in, I think I just gave up and studied art history as default. When I chose my major, I really preferred 14th or 15th century Italian. But the Boston Museum had a lot of important Oriental things. I just said like that. I made a bold decision, and it just said, "I'm going into Oriental art." It led to my doing research at the Metropolitan, and I couldn't believe I would actually get a job at the Met by just going and asking. And I walked out of there with a job and doing research, which I just adored. And writing my thesis on this'll get you, three examples of engraved 13th century metalwork in the Metropolitan Museum. That was my thesis. Of course, what else? I just jumped into everything. Full force, all 4 feet. I was introduced to my then husband, who was, 'cause Jim Wagonford was his name, and he was at Time Incorporated, and what all during the period I knew him, and they sold articles to foreign press, and so we would go over as representatives, and I remember sitting opposite. Oh God, what was her? Olivia de Havilland, who was married to the editor of who was sitting right down there, and it was it's sort of wonderful. I mean, and I just thought, oh, this is nice, you know. I went away and left and went down to Atlanta, which was a riot. I mean, we had a wonderful time down there. It was the Atlanta Constitution was really a good newspaper. It was a lovely experience, and it lasted about a year and a half.
So, in the middle of your time in New York, you spent a year in Atlanta?
That's right.
How did that work? What
well, I just left the museum and went south with my husband, and then
had he been relocated to Atlanta? Or
yeah,
he'd been given a job in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, he'd been relocated, but then he was unrelocated, and I joined the symphony orchestra as a violist
in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
Was that a difficult thing to do, or did you find that your talent was just fine for the Atlanta Symphony?
Which was, I remember mentioning this to the head of the guy, it's Jonathan Sturm, who is head of he's first chair of the Des Moines Symphony, and he said that I finally impressed him. I didn't realize that I had never said this before. And so I did, I just trotted that out, but he sort of sat up and he said, I don't think I could even make it in today's world. And I had to break the contract because we went back to New York. I never played a note for them. But I was supposed to, they had me try out borrowing the instrument for the first violin section. And I have to say, it had been so rare that I'd played up in those things that I just couldn't do it. And so they hired me as a violist. So I went back to New York after being in Atlanta for a year, and was hired by Professor Pope to be with him in Shiraz. He was he wrote all those books right behind you. The Survey of Persian Art in 1936. No, it was 38 when the bombs were falling on London. And that was Oxford University Press. So that was a big deal. And Persians absolutely adore him because he put them on the map. And he took the most beautiful photographs of anybody I know. And still, I can spot a Pope photograph. And he was 86 at the time. And I'm just a marvel at that guy's get up and go. I met him at a dance, and I was invited by this American collector of very important rugs, and he said that he was having he said, "Listen, honey," or something. He called me. He had this name for me. I'm going to have a shindig down at the Plaza Hotel, and I'd love for you to be there. And I thought, well, you know, I'm not dressed properly, but I remember I was given this dress by somebody. We'd trade, you know, it'd swap, and at Radcliffe. So I went, and Ali Khan was there dancing with, you know. It was just a marvelous little soiree, or not afternoon tea, I guess it was. So, and we hit it off, and the Popes and I. So they invited me up to visit. He sat me down with them at the table. I just, you know, I didn't know them from Adam. He liked me. and I was ready to see an Islamic country. I was just really thirsty for living there. And it was the most wonderful experience. I arrived on my 30th birthday. So that was a big deal. And that was somebody, his servant had baked a cake for me. The Shah gave them a huge, expansive dwelling in Shiraz to start a new institute. And he had the most successful institute in New York City. He then had to give it up because he was always running out of money. He had a terrible time with money, and so he finally had to close it. But they had a really splendid operation going there, and the Persians just love him. He's the one that put Persian art on the map for them. I had lots of friends, and we were good band. I loved the English. I mean, there weren't too many Americans. Yes, there were, as a matter of fact. In fact, I got in touch with one of them, who said, for the first time in years, and I contacted him, and he said, "You were always easy on my mind."
Was he one of the ones that got away?
It's more like I got away. Andre was the most eligible bachelor in town, and in Shiraz, and he once. I remember him fixing me with this glare. He had a Moroccan girlfriend, and it turns out that he was heartily sick of her, but she was gorgeous. I mean, what's to be sick of? But he's not, as we will see, strictly made to be married. So anyway, that he had. Anyway, I sort of, after she was out of the picture, I think. Anyway, she didn't come back with it. So there he was, alone, and fixing me with this stare at the milk bar from 4 tables away, and I just sort of thought, well, okay, I don't know, but he was pretty good looking, so we sort of started going out together, and I remember this Italian who was really a super guy. He was building bridges, and I thought that's kind of ironic because the original Romans were chased out of that part of the world, and now here they were building bridges. So anyway, he said to me once, "If you really love somebody, don't marry them." So.
Sounds like a very Italian way to treat life.
I don't. You think so? And he was convinced that I could make a lot of money, which is where I was headed, I think.
How did he say that you could make money?
Being a model in Italy, he said I could make a lot of money being a model in Italy.
Was it tempting?
Yeah, I was at what the hell mode, you know. But then it got sort of serious with Andre, and we went together to meet his parents.
After how long?
Oh boy, it was about 6 months, I guess. I was only there for a year and a half, so this was kind of precipitous. I thought it was a great adventure, but I never saw the sun. and Belgium is just rough. And even Tom was, if you ask him, he's sick of it. I mean, he just didn't like the climate at all. But it was, I have to say, I don't recommend, unless you've lived in the country a little bit. It's a tough haul. I have to say that his mother turned out to be really important in his life. And I had no idea how important she was. And his father was a sweetie, a really, really remarkable man. And I'm sorry that he wasn't more like his dad. Anyway, Andre was assigned to by the Belgian government to work in Morocco. He was head of the refinery, I think. He was way up in the pecking order anyway.
So you moved to Morocco with one young son,
and then the other one was born there, I just paid attention to them, and it was wonderful. I just loved them. I know it was, and I took pictures. There were some really lovely pictures that I have, and in fact, there's one in that room, in the dining room, and it was for the passport, and it's just a scream, really. Tom is sort of going like this, and John is going ooh, and I'm holding them both. So it's really wonderful. I just adored them. I did.
What did you love doing with them?
Everything. Why have you collected all this stuff? Yeah, stuff. I love it. I mean, I really do. I keep looking at stuff, and my stuff, and I get pleasure out of it. It's pleasant. I mean, it's easy to look at. I like the way I've arranged it. I mean, I love it. I identify with it. I remember where I bought it. It has meaning for me.
You've spoken on art and craft a lot. I mean,
yeah.
You have a bit of a track record speaking on things. And when you're giving a talk, what do you hope that people will come away with?
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's true. I can't explain it. I slowly became aware that I would really rather the room be black, and that I was translating it directly to people's minds, and that takes some doing.
What do you mean by translating something to people's minds?
Just exactly what I said.
Could you
say
more?
I wanted them to understand the construction of the pieces, blah blah blah, but I wanted them to. I wanted to translate somehow the meaning of those pieces that they were seeing on the wall. I used to use two screens, and understand that they were. I just wanted to pass them directly to their minds, and I don't know how to explain that in any other way.
If you succeed in passing something directly to somebody's mind, what sort of an effect do you think that would have on people?
Oh, it had great effect, because um, I was witness to this. People would step out of these lectures and enthralled. They were just. They said, "I'd never thought of that this way," and blah blah blah. It was just amazing. That kilim, it was on display in the Boston American Oriental Art Society, and somebody said that he was honored to have, and they were beautiful. It was on an end wall, and he said that he was honored to have his trappings, which were Southern tribal, as there's that piece, flanking this beautiful kilim. And I mean, that was kind of a compliment, and I didn't really expect it. But the more I look at this thing, I just the more I appreciate it. I never tired of looking at it. I bought it from the fellow who restored a hotel in Isfahan. He had all these experts, and they were old men passing on this is why I love Iran, passing on their techniques to these kids who couldn't wait. They were just lapping it up. They were so overjoyed that these old guys were showing them how to do it. I really love the things that I collected. And for example, that little piece up there on the top, I just adore it. And it's not worth anything. I mean, it's just, I like it. I love it. So, and then there's some things that are worth quite a bit, but that, for example, and this. But I don't give much truck to, the worth of things. I don't really. I'm starting to give away things, But that meant something both to everybody, I gave a necklace to Gail Pace, and I gave this bracelet to Jerry Ann, and I also gave a choice of paintings that I had done, watercolor, and that I had done myself. I guess it's more like putting two people together, that belong together. I'm out of the picture now, and so, I mean, soon to be, but I just, it's nice. It's a good feeling. It's just lovely to make people's day, I think. This is what I would like to leave behind as a souvenir of me. But it's not just. I don't know why I'm doing this actually, but the real reason is that there will be something of me that my grandchildren can identify with. I don't know if they'll understand for several years. That you have to be strong in life, and I think there are rewards to being strong, and you don't always win. In fact, sometimes you make some colossal mistakes, and that's okay too. Gratitude is precious. I do think just, well, it sounds stupid, but I feel I bring light to the world. I mean, I can't explain it any other way. I mean, not the world, that's too pompous, but I bring light to, well, here's one thing I said once. I allow people to be themselves. That's what I think. That's what I think. If the other person wants to talk, I will work with that. Whatever they want to say, I will work with. That sounds simple, but I kept thinking, I should be more this, I should be more that, you know, all these things that you wish you'd been in life. And I sort of started searching for something that made my life worth it. I mean, it was kind of a desperate search in a way, but then I settled for that answer that I just let people be, and I be themselves. And I think that's what it is that makes people want to talk to me or something. Can I tell you about where I want to be buried?
Of course.
I think I'm going to be buried in the old cemetery of Oak Hill in Cedar Rapids. And I'm going to be buried with my ashes in the pit. And so they're going to plant a genuine oak tree, because I'm sick of those cypress things. I know they don't need anything, but goddamn it, it's Oak Hill. It needs oaks, so I'm going to plant one. Anyway, that I have already established with with the powers that be. Anyway, that is. Oh God, I love that.